Okay, boom. I think we're live. Um, hey guys, really welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon with the guys here from Upmarket. I just had a quick look before we jumped on, and it is 44 days to Black Friday. Where's the year gone? I just can't believe that we're in the middle of October and that this, in some respects, almost even feels like a late webinar for Black Friday. But I just do know from, speaking to all of our customers over the last couple of weeks, not everybody has their Black Friday plans absolutely locked down at this point. We all log on to LinkedIn and onto Twitter, and we see that, we all should have our plans locked down, and that's the case for some businesses. It's certainly not the case for all businesses. So really looking forward to getting into this today. So the title of our webinar today is going to be 3 moves to turn BFCM into your most profitable quarter ever. And as I'll touch on in a second, we're joined here by the team from Upmarket Digital. So just a quick recap in terms of what we're going to run through this afternoon. We're going to make it very jargon light. We're going to make it as actionable as possible. So kicking off, we're going to do some introductions. We're going to go into a quick state of the union in terms of what Q4 2025 is going to look like. And then we're going to kind of get into the detail. We're going to move into, first of all, looking at offer structures. We're going to go into media buying. And then also, we're going to be acquiring a ton of new customers this time of the year. How do we use that new customer base to build for the long term? And we're going to dig into that from a retention perspective as well. So from my perspective, if anyone here on the webinar doesn't know who I am, my name is Thomas. I'm co-founder here at Store Hero. So for those of you who don't know, Store Hero is a profitability reporting and platform for e-commerce businesses. We work with over 600 e-commerce businesses to centralize all the Shopify, all the marketing and finance information to really help brands understand incremental contribution margin and forecasting. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Amy, the founder of Upmarket Digital.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy, founder of Upmarket Digital. I started the agency back in 2016, so we're coming up on 10 years now. We're a full-service agency. We manage paid media across Meta, Google, and TikTok. Excuse me. We also handle full lifecycle marketing through email and SMS. As an agency founder, my background is unique in that it's actually in finance, not marketing. My degree is in business and accounting. And before starting Upmarket, I spent about 20 years working in finance and capital markets, primarily in derivatives trading. And then on the side, I launched my own e-commerce brand where I really taught myself everything there is to know about meta advertising. So I realized back then that media buying and running an e-commerce brand is a lot like trading. You're analyzing data, managing risk, and making decisions in real time based on numbers. At the end of the day, you're just trying to buy low and sell high. So that connection between marketing and finance became the foundation for Upmarket. We like to say we're a marketing agency that does math, and our focus is on building the bridge between marketing decisions and financial outcomes, optimizing around contribution margin and profit and not just ROAS. So over the last 10 years, we've been searching for an analytics platform that helps us connect all those dots, something that truly measures profitability and not just performance. After testing every platform out there, we finally found it, and that's how we've become to be partnered with Store Hero. So thanks again, Thomas, for inviting us to participate in this webinar today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joaquin.
Hey everyone, I'm Joaquin from Argentina. I'm a senior media buyer running meta ads for Upmarket Digital. I also started back in 2016 and worked with dozens of different clients from different industries, but working with e-commerce brands since 2020. And basically drove more than $10 million in sales for our clients. Been working with Amy since 2023. If I am correct, and excited to be here. Thank you, Thomas, also for the opportunity to share some valuable information with the audience today.
Okay, so we'll get right into it. Let's jump into the state of Q4 2025. Before we get into the 3 moves, it's important to take a look at where we actually stand heading into the holiday season. The landscape has shifted, costs are up, competition is tighter, and what worked last year doesn't necessarily work this year. We'll walk through what's changed since 2024, how performance has evolved across platforms, and what this means for your strategy going into BFCM. So we can go on to the next slide. Let's start with where we're coming from. Last year, 2024, was really about volume over value. Brands leaned into deep discounts, cheaper customer acquisition costs, and aggressive new customer acquisition. And for a lot of them, it worked. But the economics have changed this year. Ad costs are up across every major platform, Meta, Google, and TikTok, while overall consumer spending has slowed. That means it's taking more ad dollars to generate the same amount of revenue, and the margins just aren't what they used to be. We're also seeing conversion rates soften and average order values flatten. So even when campaigns perform well on the surface, the profit underneath often tells a different story. The mindset of scale fast, fix profit later that worked a few years ago doesn't hold up anymore. Brands that will win this BFCM are the ones that adapt and who prioritize profit over pure growth, and who understand that efficiency and retention matter just as much as acquisition.
For me, there's one thing that actually really jumps out there at me, Amy, is the increase in CPMs year over year. That is wild to see. And again, it's something that we're seeing across the board with a lot of store hero brands, but CPMs up 20 to 30% year over year. It's pretty large. You know, it's effectively an increased tax that's getting applied to every e-commerce business.
That's right. And Joaquin's going to speak about this more in Meta, but with the increase, that's why we're going to talk so in depth about why media buying, the efficiency is so important this year.
Nice. Sorry, yeah, really looking forward to getting into it. I think I hear your dog's knocking around
my dog is trying to knock and get in the door, so I might have to pause and let him in here because he's going to try to break the door down. So here's what the data is telling us. So online holiday sales are still growing. They're forecasted to hit about 253 billion this year, which is just over 5% from 2024. So it's still growth. It's just slower growth. Last year, we saw nearly 9%. So the pace is cooling off. At the same time, as we just discussed, ad spend continues to rise, especially on Meta, where CPMs, like Thomas called out, are up roughly 20 to 30% year over year. So we're spending more to generate proportionately less in return. We're also seeing new customer revenue share slip by about 5 points versus last year, which means brands are relying more on existing customers than ever before. Meta still dominates when it comes to driving scale, but the way to win on the platform has changed. It's not just about who spends most, it's about who spends the smartest. And the biggest opportunities that we're seeing in Q4 are with brands who align their offer math, which we'll cover, their media efficiency and retention strategies into one system, because that is where the profit lives. So we can skip on to the next slide. So what does this all mean leading into Q4? It means that it isn't just about going bigger, it's about going smarter. Efficiency is down, ad costs are up, and that means that brands that will win are the ones that know how to protect margin and make data-driven decisions. So it starts out by getting your offer right. So let's move on and get into our first big move, which is crafting our offer strategy.
Just before you dive in there, Amy, I think it's a really interesting point that you kind of touched on, was just like the difference between just going bigger versus maybe not going as big, but just creating more value. And I think that's a big trap that a lot of brands tend to fall into, is just chasing top line revenue consistently. We work with a ton of brands, and obviously, even looking back at last year, there were some businesses when you go back to 2021, 22, that were seeing these exceptional growth rates. But underneath that was like really, really cheap customer acquisition costs. So it's okay if you are a business, maybe 2025 hasn't been the most exceptional year. You don't need double-digit top-line growth all the time. If your CAC or if your CPMs have increased dramatically within that time period, it's okay to maybe have a slower growth rate, depending on what you're building towards, obviously, but obviously preserving that margin piece underneath as well.
That's right. And a lot of brands don't plan for that, meaning they don't plan for the math, right? So one of the things we'll go through in the offer strategy is our offer profitability calculator, which brands should be taking the 60 seconds to a minute to go through and calculate the cost of each of their discounts that they're offering in advance. There's also a big component or a forecasting component into looking at your offers in terms of, is your brand in a position where most of their revenue during Q4 is going to come from new customers? Meaning, are you an early stage brand that really has to focus on pure prospecting to bring in new customers during this time? Or are you a brand that's going to bring in 60, 70, 80% of your revenue from repeat customers? Because the answer to that question will also help guide you in how you craft your offers going into Q4. Sorry, do I move on now? Okay, so again, going back to the offer strategy, so to be realistic, most BFCM offers aren't necessarily profitable on first order, and that's okay. So the volume of profit does come from returning and repeat customers. So this section is about structuring your offers intentionally so that you do understand the true cost of your discounts, so you can protect the margin as much as you can up front, and then set yourself up to earn that profit back through repeat purchases after the holidays. So when we think about offer strategy, it's not just about what the discount is, it's about who the offer is for and how that offer is being communicated, or how those offers are being communicated. So for most brands, BFCM is the time of year where you'll spend the most on paid media, and that communication is happening primarily through Meta. So when we think about offers, we need to think about offers in the context of medium and user type. So for new customer acquisition, your main medium is Meta and any other paid channels you may be on. So those people might be seeing your brand for the first time. So your BFCM offer has to be very simple, very clear, and time sensitive, but also include some of that messaging if they've never heard of your brand before. You can't just throw up the flashy, Nordstrom style ad that says up to 50% off this weekend when somebody isn't familiar with even your brand or your products. So when you think about your offer strategy, the medium of where you're placing that offer and the audience of who's going to be consuming that offer needs to be thought about as well. So for existing customers, our medium shifts. We're now able to do a lot more within email and SMS than we are just running our paid ads. So this is where so through email and SMS, through segmentation, we have a lot more insight as to who we are marketing to and what they've bought. So we can get a lot more specific in the types of offers we're running throughout the whole, 4 to 8 week period of, even starting in October, some brands, but November through December, we could run a lot more specific, targeted, and segmented offers throughout that period to our customers that we have a lot more information on. So early access to VIPs, flash sales based on past purchase history, and bundles designed to move aging inventory, because this really is also a time we want to try to clear out as much aging inventory as we can. So crafting offers on email and SMS to existing customers, we could do that based on what we already know about those customers. And so we do that a lot with the clients we work with. We'll run our big site-wide sale, 30% off this weekend only type thing to everyone. And that's where we have all of our landing pages and our hero banners and our ads running. But behind the scenes, much earlier in that, we're running a lot more smaller, targeted, specific offers to customers through email and SMS.
Just to jump in there, I think that's a really interesting point around the kind of older age stock as well, because it is a very condensed buying window that we have for e-commerce. Like a lot of e-commerce businesses are going to do 50% of their revenue in the next 2 months. So there's an opportunity here to clear a lot of age stock. And I think when we're thinking about BFCM offer structure, a lot of it is making sure that we have an increased perceived value of what the offer looks like. And if you have dead stock there that is just sitting there, you could do the increased bundle, you can do free gift with purchase options that often could be, more margin positive than just slapping a 30% site-wide discount in place. So I really, really love that point. And it's great that you guys are thinking about that with your clients as well, because it's just so important.
Yeah, it's also a great way to try to move as much aging inventory as you can in a period where it makes sense to do that, so that you're not stuck when you're getting into January, February, and March running these big site-wide sales to try to get rid of inventory then that seem more like, I don't use the word like brand damaging, because if we can do these targeted offers that make sense to the right people during this time period, it's less damaging, and it helps improve your cash flow more now than trying to run some sort of a clearance sale getting into March of next year. If that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and so just to summarize the offers, we want it to be simple. We want it to be valuable. When we say we want it to be profitable, I'm going to run through a simple calculator in a second, but we don't necessarily mean that it has to be profitable on first order. I mean, ideally, brands do want to try to achieve first order profitability, but it's not always possible, and that's okay. So what we mean is we want to design offers that minimize first order loss and set you up for fast payback through retention. So I'm just going to share my screen here real quick.
I think that's such an interesting point as well. Like, you had a really interesting kind of tidbit under that slide. It was like, with CPMs up 20 to 30%, your marketing dollars need to work harder. And then if you're talking about increasing discounts to 20, 30%, it just puts such a further onus on that marketing to outperform the discount that you put in place. And again, such a really, really good point to be taking into account here.
Great. Okay, so this is just a really basic calculator, and we'll share this with everyone on the call. And it literally takes about 60 seconds to run through various scenarios for each of the offers you're designing to get you through the holiday period, or any time throughout the year. We use this calculator for all the offers that we are considering running for any of our clients. So this first tab here is just the instructions for how the calculator works. And then you just put everything in this cost breakdown tab, and then it'll give you a profit analysis based on your spend level. So I'm just going to do a very, very simple example here. So let's just say your average order value is $100 and your cost of goods is, let's just say $40. I'm just going to leave the transaction payment fees, like your credit card processing fees, at 3%. I'll put in $10 for shipping and fulfillment and leave our return rate at 3%. So that gives me a total cost of delivery. So the cost to get the product into the hands of the customer at $56. And that gives me a unit gross margin of $44. So this is where right here you can set your net target for what your net profit is on a per unit basis. I'm going to set it at $10, but you can run different scenarios in terms of you could want to just break even, or you could, in an aggressive growth situation, even put in a net target of like -$5. So again, you could really play around with this, but for this example, I'm going to keep it simple and just put in a net profit target of $10. So that will give me what my customer acquisition cost target is and my ROAS target. And this is again before any discount. So a very simple example here. But just looking at this before I apply any discounts, if I go to the profit analysis, it's going to show me what, based on my spend level, it's going to show me what my total profit and my per order profit is based on those numbers I put in here. So then just for this simple example, I'm going to put in, sorry.
Must be the dog.
Yeah,
Dog is calling you.
I thought the dogs were going to be my distraction. Yeah, so just for this example, I'm going to say our client wants to run a 25% off site-wide sale. So I'm going to put 25% off in that discount field. And you can see, going back to my profit analysis, that 25% discount is going to put me into a negative situation for new customer acquisition, right? Because one of the things that I don't know why it's the hardest thing to explain when we're talking to new customer or to clients is all of that customer acquisition cost is in that first order, right? So that's why retention is so important, because even though we want to achieve first order profitability, as I said before, it's not always realistic. And especially with how high customer acquisition costs have risen, is that just because we have a negative or first order profitability doesn't mean we want to pull back ad spend or anything like that, because in our retention slides, we're going to show how we can easily flip a negative first order profit to really good margins just by getting a repeat purchase within ideally like a 60 to 90 day window. So it's a negative first order profit is okay as long as we understand it upfront and plan for it. So that's what we're saying here, is that we want it to be intentional and not a surprise, because I think a lot of brands will plan their holiday discounts based on like what feels good, what their competitors are doing, just maybe what they did last year, and not really sitting down and forecasting and intentionally designing these offers so that they know going into it what the true cost of that discount is. So
I think that's
again,
such a good point.
Yeah.
Would you mind actually, Amy, going back to the calculator and just like right now we can see that we're just getting rid of the 25% discount for a quick second. Let's get rid of it. So this is like full price. If we just go back to the profit analysis sheet, so we can see here that we're currently, generating significant profit per order. And then if we go back and just put in that profit, that discount again, 25%, which, a lot of brands are going to put in place. And if we pop back over then to the profit analysis sheet, it just goes to show you the impact that those discounts are actually having on the profitability of the business. And I just think that's such an important point that we just need to understand, to your point, when we're going into Black Friday, that the offers that we run aren't knee-jerk, options that we take or decisions that we make, that we have the fully thought out plan in terms of what that's going to look like from a margin perspective, from a break-even point ROAS perspective, because as you've seen there, like we were pretty profitable on the original calculation, and once we put in that 25% discount, if we continued scaling that, we are going to end up in a pretty significant loss situation there as well. So again, just for everyone listening to this, we will be popping a copy of this sheet into the email afterwards as well, so you'll all be able to get a copy and do this exercise for yourselves.
Yeah, so this isn't necessarily per order on every single order. It's really first order. So this takes into consideration that the first order is where you have customer acquisition cost. But if you're running the same offer to an existing customer, there's obviously more profit in the same discount because you don't have a customer acquisition cost for a repeat purchase. So, okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. I think I've probably talked enough about offer strategy. So, if we want to skip forward and turn it over to Joaquin at this point and let him get into talking about meta, that would be great.
Absolutely, and meta is such an interesting conversation. I think that everybody's trying to crack going into this time of the year. We're all looking for new customers. So I know, Joaquin, we had a quick look at the slide before we jumped on, and really looking forward to getting into this.
Thomas, I am sharing my screen, but I think you guys don't see it, right? Okay, there you go. Okay.
Let's skip through that. Oh, I can come back to that if we have time. There's some recommended timing. I guess I can cover this right now. So these are so when we talk about offer planning, we're looking at all of Q4. We're not just talking about just our offer that we're going to run Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So really in October, we're still working on lead generation. So we should have been working on it before October, but October is still a good time. People aren't buying yet, even though some larger brands do start to run offers in October. And you will get people who will take advantage of things like early access offers. Most people's behavior is that they're still going to get the volume of purchases. People are still going to buy on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but that doesn't mean we can't be running offers throughout this whole time period. So really, in October, we're lead gen, we're activating influencers, brand partnerships, affiliates. We're prepping all of our affiliates for Black Friday, things like that. And then we get into early part of November. We want to think about early access. So maybe more than 20%, but less than whatever our Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer is going to be. So, think about your VIPs, your SMS list, anyone you want to give early access to. Then we've got our Black Friday. Black Friday is our highest order volume offer. So whatever is our strongest site-wide offer is what we want to run during that Black Friday period. And then Cyber Monday is kind of that day we want to maximize discounted offers to push the highest sales volume and average order value. So a lot of times we're running stacked offers. So we're layering on to what our Black Friday offer was. And we're doing like sale on sale, or what Thomas had mentioned before, gift with purchase, things like that. And then we don't just stop when we get to Cyber Monday. We think about the first few weeks of December, and we're really running all kinds of gift guides and shipping offers and things like that for last minute shoppers, and really communicating, especially what our shipping cutoffs are. And then we have something here we call Q5 opportunity, which is not just quitting when everyone's exhausted at that point. And I know we always want to just quit at the end when we hit our shipping cutoff, but there's a lot of opportunity and people still really shop right after Christmas. So it's a great time to run and to take advantage of lower CPMs during that period, and run some offers around, warehouse clearance sales, things like that, because people are still buying after the Christmas holiday. So offer planning, so timing matters just as much as the offer itself. So that's
just on that. Q5 is kind of, I would say, 19th of December to the 31st, or does it go into January 12th?
Well, it definitely goes into January, but we're really thinking about once we're getting into January and February, and we'll cover this in the retention, is how do we get all of those brand new customers that we acquired during Black Friday, Cyber Monday to repeat purchase in January and February, because that is where the real, like the volume of profit lies. It's going to be in that repeat. So we map out our retention just as diligently as we map out our offer strategy to get us through Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And so we want to start thinking now about, it's hard to think beyond Cyber Monday, but we want to start thinking now about laying out how are we going to retain all those customers in January and February. So Q5 is really just like that shorter period, kind of right after Christmas and into the new year, where we may want to take advantage of low CPMs and still run ads and still get some offers out there before we shift into January and February. So
okay. All right, guys. So now we're gonna talk about meta ads, and I want to say that when auditing different accounts, what I'm noticing is that many accounts are not following the main best practices from Meta, and that's what I want to focus on today, especially in two best practices that are very important. One, and this is the first point that I want to drive home, is creative diversity. I know you probably heard this before, but I want to share something that I think you'll find interesting about this. So recently, Meta has updated their Andromeda system, and they're basically now pushing towards creative diversity more than ever, because Meta became like very smart at processing multiple data points and expanding the context window for each user. So it has lots of information about interest and behavior. And the way you are able to reach your potential buyers, especially during BFCM, is through creative diversity. And I'm going to show you an example now. But you probably, in your account, if you're running ads in the past, and this is something that I'm seeing in different accounts, is that there's one ad that's driving performance, and that's like you're kind of like looking for that perfect ad, that unicorn ad, and you just run one ad. But that can get ad fatigue over time. And if you want to scale, and if you want to basically don't leave money on the table during BFCM and Q4 in general, you want to have ad variety, dozens of ad creatives, different angles, formats, and personas. So let me show you something that I think is interesting. So as you know, you probably know, each ad has its own ID. However, Meta is, so this is, again, this is an official information deck from Meta, and we'll share this as well. But Meta is saying that there's something called entity ID. So basically all your ad creatives that look similar will be categorized under the same entity ID, regardless of which campaign or ad set they're in. So for example, if you have 5 campaigns and you have very similar creatives in your 5 campaigns, all those creatives will share the learnings and will target the same audience. So that's why it's interesting, and it's important to have different entities IDs, not just one. So in other words, what you want to avoid is to have, like, for example, if you have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and you have all creatives that are very similar, just static image with some headline, and that's it, you're going to be limited in terms of your reach. And for example, if you are, let's say you're selling something that is related to weight loss, for example, and you're only speaking about weight loss, you'll be reaching an segment that is interested in weight loss. However, if your product has different benefits, you can shift to highlighting other benefits, and that might be resonating with other audiences that are potential buyers, while also keeping your main messaging related to Black Friday as the main messaging, and but also having like different format variety. And what you do want to avoid is the what's called the sea of sameness. So which is like all your ads look very similar. So if you look at your if you can go to the ads library and see all your ads you're running, and just look if you see that all ads look very the same, there's something need to work around there. And so similar creatives sometimes, for example, here's an example. So similar creatives might have the same messaging and very similar kind of like background style or editing style, where differentiate creative have different messaging, different formats, and different editing styles sometimes, and can also speak to different personas, right? So let's go back to the slide. So concepts
I
and
just
themes.
think that's Joaquin, that's an interesting approach just from on the Andromeda update that, you know, over the last couple of years, it has been about throwing loads of creatives that were maybe slightly different into the ad account and let Meta figure out which one worked. But that's not the advice anymore.
Exactly. You want to be more disruptive in terms of how to differentiate creatives. And for example, you might, so there's something that Meta is really pushing towards, which is Reels. I would suggest that you, like, if you are not running video ads, maybe a good mix would be 50-50. But again, these are like general advice. You see what's working for you better. But make sure you have Reels running, because that's what every Meta rep will actually, suggest you to do. And try to identify, like, how do you talk to different personas during Black Friday. So if your products is good for moms, try to speak to moms, try to speak to other potential buyer personas, or like last minute gifts under $50. These are just examples. But regardless of your messaging format and angle, make sure you are starting with your offer instantly. First frame, first couple of seconds, you need to lay out your offer and try to have at least 10 ads running, very different ads. That's what I would suggest. And including your evergreen creative. So do not turn off your best performing ads during BFCM, because that sometimes outperforms your sale ads. But it depends, volume of ads depends on your budget, essentially. And so the second kind of like main best practice from Meta is account simplification. And this one, I'm bringing this up because I'm seeing many accounts running 5 to 20 campaigns. And usually that kind of like goes against the best practice of account simplification. And again, this depends on your budget. I'm just sharing some like minimal account structure that you can try. One that is interesting is, for example, running with very low budget a traffic campaign optimizing towards landing page views, not link clicks. And what that campaign can help you do, especially before BFCM, is bringing in new traffic from top of funnel and warming up that traffic into middle of funnel, and also kind of like reaching to some of the middle funnel audiences you have to, like, with new content, and especially educational reels. Reels is a great format to introduce in this type of campaign. And but again, very low budget on it. This is something that at the beginning I was kind of like against trying it, but it actually works pretty well. So that's something I invite you to try. So that's a traffic campaign with landing page views. But then have your main sales campaign, which is an ASC. And especially if you're getting, so this is something you should try. See how much of your purchase conversion value is coming from 7-day click attribution and how much is coming from 1-day view. Because that's another kind of like mistakes that I'm seeing from different account audits, that the ROAS is fantastic on Meta, but they're getting 50% of their attributed revenue in 1-day view. And that's not driving incremental conversions. So in that case, I would suggest you to optimize towards 7-day click or incremental attribution, which is a new kind of like attribution system from Meta that you can try as well. Yeah, so that's especially if you're getting more than 50 conversions per week, that's something you want to try. But if you're getting very few conversions, then 7-day click, 1-day view should be fine, because you need to have more data. And in the main campaign, you want to have all sorts of creative, like as I say, creative diversity, but also speaking to your top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, everything combined in one campaign. And try to be very organized with your ad creatives batches. So try to only introduce and publish new creatives in your main campaign once or 2 times per month. So that will basically allow you to not interfere with the learning phase too often. So that's another recommendation. Now, if you do have more than 50 conversions per week on your main campaign, and you have more budget, I would suggest you run other campaigns as well. So for example, optional tests you can run, other campaigns could be a separate, like if you're running DPAs or DAVA, dynamic ads for broad audiences, dynamic product ads, and if you're running that type of ad in your main campaign, especially if you're in the fashion industry, it's very likely that you'll see that that type of ad is being allocated most of your budget. So you might want to split that into 2 campaigns. So one for your dynamic product ads and another one for your regular ads. So that's something you can do. You can also test running your sales specific creatives into its own campaign, like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, early bird, Christmas. That can have like separate campaign. And you also can explore manual bidding. So cost cap, minimum ROAS. Cost cap will basically optimize your campaign towards getting the lowest cost of acquisition. And the minimum ROAS will try to increment your ROAS. So that's another good test to run during BFCM. And if you have lots of products with different AOVs, you may want to combine some products that have similar AOVs in different campaigns, so that you are also able to sell products that are more expensive. Because if you're selling a $50 product in one campaign, and in the same campaign you're running an ad for a $500 product, it's likely that the Meta will sell more of your $50 product, because we'll likely have a lower cost of acquisition, and so Meta will optimize towards the cost of lowest cost of acquisition, and therefore will sell more of your cheaper products. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But overall, just to keep it simple, the idea is that ideally you want to try to keep as fewer campaigns as possible running, so all your learnings will happen in a specific ad set, and Meta is able to gather more data and optimize your account and your ads better, especially if you have a low budget. If you have a very high budget, you have more flexibility. But this is something I want to point, because I see lots of accounts running 10 campaigns with 10 conversions per week. It's better to have one campaign with 100 conversions per week. So just want to say that. And then when it comes to specifically BFCM, as Amy said, CPMs will increase. That's very likely. CPMs during BFCM will increase, but don't worry, because conversion rates also increase, and that's how we're able to achieve a higher ROAS during BFCM typically. But I think my best advice for you guys during BFCM in terms of meta ads is to be very well organized. Try to have all your creatives ready before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Publish all your creatives with time before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then you are just turning on and turning off creatives and rotating the creatives that are relevant for each time of the year. So in terms of optimization, you may want to be how aggressive you want to be with the budget's up to you, but don't worry, you can increase 30, 50, 100% your budget or more, and see what happens with ROAS. And you have to be kind of like monitoring performance every 24 to 48 hours. Don't wait for Meta to so here's the thing, like once Black Friday is on, game is on. And so you have to be like a coach, and you need to have like a hypothesis of what are the best creatives you think will perform better. And so it's like you are putting your main players in the game and see how they perform. And then after 24 hours, you see some are underperforming or they're not getting much spend. You can turn them off and rotate, but do not add more creatives to the campaign because that will reset learning phase. And yeah, watch out for evergreen ads that those ads, as I said, can outperform your best Black Friday Cyber Monday creatives. And if you're running manual bids, try to increase your cost cap target and your minimum ROAS before Black Friday Cyber Monday so that you're able to spend more during that time. Yeah, I think that's kind of like what I wanted to share. And I'm going to move to the next one.
Okay, so we'll wrap up with retention, which again for 2025 we think retention is going to be one of the more important than ever before, just because of the cost, not only the rising ad costs and the rising customer acquisition costs, but also just with new customer acquisition slowing down slightly over last year. Within Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a lot of brands are going to be relying on their existing customers for that revenue, unless you're an early stage startup. But just like that, we want to really make sure that after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that we're doing everything we can to keep those customers that we acquired. So if you want to go on to the next slide. So the real profit is in post Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday brings a huge wave of first-time buyers, but historically, more than half of those customers never come back. And I've seen metrics where it's closer to 70, 80%. So that's why we want to map out our retention strategy early. And we want to also really focus on that 60 to 90 day retention window is very critical. Now, it's not going to be the same for every brand. We work with a lot of fashion and apparel brands, and we also work with a lot of CPG subscription type brands where getting a repeat purchase within that 60 to 90 day window is a lot more achievable than the brands that we work with that are very high-end luxury, where the repeat purchase window is a lot longer. But we have found that just from a cash flow perspective and paying vendors and things like that, the more we can do to improve our cash multiplier, which is our 60-day customer value or 90-day customer value, the more we can do to improve that and reduce that CAC payback window, the more we can help our clients improve their cash flow. So that's why, this is why our 60 to 90 day retention window is so critical. And it's where our Q4 revenue either becomes sustainable profit or it just expensive growth. So the first sale pays for the acquisition, as we kind of saw in our calculator, and the second sale and drives the profit. So the next slide is kind of another just basic math slide, as coming off that calculator where we're showing that a lot of times our Black Friday, Cyber Monday offers aren't necessarily profitable for first order, but that through that second order, since all of the customer acquisition cost is attributed to first order, that getting that repeat purchase within that 60 to 90 day window can flip our negative contribution margin to positive. So that's why we always say don't make decisions to pull back ad spend and things like that just because of negative first order profitability, because the real volume of profit comes from that second purchase. So this example, we're just showing that if your AOV is $88, you have a high customer acquisition cost of $75 on that first order. And our margin is negative $7 on the first purchase. But if that customer comes back and purchases within that 60, 90-day window and spends again, even just once, I mean, ideally, we turn that repeat customer into what we call a loyal and a VIP. But even if they just repeat one time, we can flip that negative into a positive contribution margin. So let's go on to the next slide, which is, this is just what we kind of lay out a 90-day retention roadmap, and that can look different for everyone. So these are just some ideas or examples of what how you can approach looking at your retention strategy within the first 90 days after Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we noticed last year that a lot of our clients actually had higher sales in December than we did in November. And it's part of that is because we really hit hard in December leading up to Christmas with gift guides and a lot of shipping cutoff emails, free shipping leading up to the shipping cutoff. We moved right to like pushing gift cards, things like that, all the way up until Christmas. And then we ran these right after Christmas through the first week of January, these clearance type sales, cleaning out our warehouse type sales. But all of those thoughts, we plan out ahead of time, but it's a great way to get those people that purchased during Black Friday, Cyber Monday to make a second purchase. So also things like, we like to say retention isn't just automation or a flow. So but there are a lot of things you can do with your email and SMS in terms of automation and flows to re-engage all those customers you acquired during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So things like asking for reviews. So we want to trigger those review request flows, and then and even incentivize them to leave a review by offering something off their next purchase. And for a lot of our clients, we'll incentivize more if they leave a review with media. So we'll offer like 10% off if they leave a review. And then we'll offer something like 15% off their next purchase if they leave a review with media. So a video of an image, because then we can use that media along with their review in our email marketing, and in our ads. So we're willing to incentivize more for reviews with media. January, we're shifting to reactivation. So restock reminders, win back flows, or might be introducing clients to our loyalty program. For subscription businesses, we want to start to push subscriptions. So, hopefully during Black Friday, Cyber Monday for subscription businesses, a lot of your offers will have incentivized a first-time buyer to sign up for a subscription. But a lot of times if they're not, they want to try the product first, they'll sign up as a one-time purchaser. But then we want to really focus on moving those one-time purchasers into subscription, into pushing subscriptions, other like pushing them for other VIP perks you guys might offer. A lot of times if somebody signed up for a newsletter, we'll incentivize them to also sign up for SMS so that they get special perks for being an SMS subscriber. So the idea here is that we want to map out our retention strategy for at least the first 90 days after BFCM and not have it be an afterthought and something you start thinking about on January 1st when we all come back after the holidays. So we want to, in terms of retention metrics, we're looking at what our repeat purchase rate is, how many of those Black Friday, Cyber Monday customers are buying again within that 60 to 90 day window. What's our 60-day LTV to CAC ratio? So are we recouping our acquisition costs within that first 2 months? Again, and then we're just trying to optimize and maximize around our cash multiplier. So that 60-day customer value and our contribution margin. I think we're bumping up on time. So we'll just go to this last slide, why this works. So When we combine all three of these moves, so profit-focused offers, margin-efficient media buying, and strong retention, so this is where we stop chasing growth and start engineering profit. So we want to make these three moves work together, and then we'll see efficiency go up, our CAC payback period shorten, and then our Q4 revenue becomes long-term growth. So that's all I had today, Thomas. I don't know if there's any
No, just
you have
want to
here.
say a massive, obviously, thank you guys. I certainly learned an awful lot in that session myself. So looking forward to kind of doing a bit of a debrief. Obviously, guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the channel there. But no, everything from the office structure there, I found the piece around Andromeda really, really interesting. It's definitely, questions that are coming up consistently on our calls with clients around just the difference between creative diversity that was maybe needed in ad accounts last year versus how that's going to change quite fundamentally this year. And then obviously getting into the retention piece, I think it's just so underrated to make sure and be methodical about thinking about as we're getting into this time of the year. Even just breaking the business up between new and repeat customers it sounds like really, really basic, but even understanding that, like, I was working with one business yesterday and they're only down 1% year on year, but they've pulled back quite a bit on ad spend. And when you actually dig into the detail and we go between new and repeats, like repeats are up, but new customers are way, way down. So it's so important to be thinking about as we come into this time of the year, not just what our top line sales figures look like, not what our top line contribution margin figures look like. We're really trying to even understand the devil in the detail between the new and repeat customer splits, and are we optimizing for one or the other? And depending on your business stage, your growth phase, or your exit plans, both are completely fine. Guys, obviously we haven't got any questions in just yet, so what we will be doing is popping an email out to everybody who is on this webinar and anyone who signed up but maybe couldn't attend today, who's going to watch back the recording. We'll include links to the Upmarket Digital website, and we'll also include links to the order profit calculator spreadsheet that you went through, Amy. I think that's such a fundamental exercise everybody should definitely undertake in the next week or two to make sure that they're well prepped, well stacked, and at least understand the implication of their discounts as it relates to their target ROAS figures, target cost caps, or whatever kind of bidding strategies that they're going to run as we get into BFCM. But final note for myself, just huge thank you guys for coming on. Honestly, learned loads there today, and hopefully we'll have you back pretty soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect, guys. We'll leave it there. So wishing everyone a very, very best of luck for Black Friday. If you have any questions, just reach out. And if not, you'll have an email from myself with all those resources this afternoon. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye.